few months ago I made several videos that revolved around the topic of trainer's difficulty and its impact on your ZWIFT performance. I tried to stay as unbiased in those videos as humanly possible, but under each of those videos there have been a heated discussion, because there aren't that many topics the ZWIFT community is more passionate but also polarized about. No matter whether you consider lower trainer difficulty cheating or not, there seems to be an overall perception that lower trainer's difficulty equals somewhat easier experience. But in my time playing with it when racing, I have to say that it does not need to be universally true. So today, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to race a fairly hilly route with 0% of trainer's difficulty, and honestly, I expect it's going to suck. And the race I decided to do this test on is the stage 4 of the Pinky Sisu Racing Grand Tour on Ter Drinkvafachen route. If I pronounce this incorrectly, I apologize, but this route is actually perfect for a test like this. By the way, I know that it isn't the focus of this video, but I really want to praise the design of this route. I believe the designer was actually a member of the ZWIFT community. It was designed for the ZRL and it's incredibly fun. If I understand it correctly, the name actually means 3 small climbs in Welsh, and it is exactly what it is. First you have the climb to the suspension bridge, then you have the climb to the hilly KOM, and finally you have the Titans Grove KOM climb at the end. Which means there is plenty of climbing, plenty of descending, and that means plenty of opportunities to test 0% trainer difficulty. And it is probably good to make a quick recap of what 0% trainer difficulty does. In short, it basically flattens out the entire experience. It doesn't matter that there are climbs on the route, it doesn't matter that there are descents on the route, it basically treats the whole route like it was flat. You still need the same power output to ride a certain speed on a certain terrain as if you had your trainer difficulty set at 100%, so in this regard you don't have any advantage. Generally speaking, if you lower your trainer difficulty, you don't need to shift as much on rolling terrain, and you can also maintain more reasonable cadence when the climb gets really steep. But when you put it all the way down to 0, you get some benefits, but there are some big disadvantages as well. And you can see it right here at the bottom of this climb. One of the biggest disadvantages of 0% trainer difficulty is you lose the road feel. It's kind of hard to describe with words, but when you are riding on a rolling terrain, you can modulate your effort based on how the road underneath you feels. And when you actually lose that, it's pretty hard to react to changes in group effort, and that's what happened to me at the start of this climb. Right as we hit the incline, the group increased the effort as usual on ZWIFT, but for a few seconds I actually struggled to do that as I didn't have the feel of the gradient underneath me. I needed to shift up and basically guesstimate at what gearing I will be able to match the group's effort. And once I managed to dial it in, the group changed effort again and I was off again. If I was doing a time trial, it would be a whole different story, because then I would be able to dial in the effort that I wanted and maintain it consistently. But it wasn't the case. In races like this, you need to react to your group's effort. And with 0% trainer difficulty, it's actually pretty hard to do. And that's pretty much the only benefit of 0% trainer difficulty. You've got absolute control and absolute modulation over your effort. But as I was saying, the downside is pretty severe. You lose all the terrain feedback, you lose momentum, and you lose the ability to quickly react to changes in effort. And as you will be able to see in a short while, you lose that not only on climbs but also on descents, because 0% trainer difficulty treats descents also as flats. And generally speaking, what that means is that if you want to climb well, you still need to produce the power, you only do it in a different gear, and then you can't even properly recover on the descent. Here you can see I'm doing over 200 watts of power, and there are guys that are leaving me just by the sheer momentum they have. What you may not realize before you set your trainer's difficulty at 0% is that you often race based on instinct, based on the feel, based on the perception that you get from the group. But you lose all that with 0% trainer difficulty because your avatar simply reacts differently to what you are used to do. It might be a good way to do workouts or time trials, but if you want to have fun racing, this isn't the way to do it. I didn't really like this experience, to be honest. But despite all that, I actually managed to hang out with this nice group of riders. And even though I do not like the experience, I'm trying my best to do as well as possible because I'm doing this whole Grand Tour and I want to see where in the general classification I can finish in. The stage 1 of this Grand Tour was actually my first race after a break from racing I took, and I was even after my holidays in Netherlands. But with each subsequent race I actually feel myself improving, and that means that I can probably finish strong in the later stages. And I actually felt pretty good even in this one, but as you will be able to see momentarily, there has been a roadblock for me in this race, and it was sort of unfortunate, but it was completely my fault. More on that a little later. So right now we are approaching the hilly KOM, and I have to admit, I probably never done it from this side. I mean, I obviously did the hilly KOM reverse, but this is a little different. Because the thing that you do here is actually the first part of the hilly KOM reverse, the steep section with the turn, but then you turn left and continue in the hilly KOM forward. That's actually a pretty cool design that I've never seen so far. At this point I'm focusing to staying with the group, but I am struggling with the 0% trainer difficulty. It's very difficult for me to modulate my effort in a way that I am just about hanging with the group. I'm very often overcompensating my effort, which means that at one point I'm getting dropped and then I'm moving forward to the front of the group. But by a lucky chance I was able to stay with the group to the top, so the deciding factor is going to be the Titans Grove KOM. Or not? Because the thing that I didn't notice by this point was that my phone was ringing and blasting with messages from my wife, who was standing in front of our apartment and desperately trying to get inside through a door that I locked when I returned from my walk with our dog. Yeah, I had to buy her an ice cream for this one. Lucky for her, in a very short while I will be finally able to see one of her many calls, which is going to be good for her but less good for my racing. But like I said, it's entirely my fault, but I had to get off my bike and let her finally in. So excuse this little pause here. I wasn't gone for very long, but the group was already 40 seconds in front of me and there was no chance I would be able to catch them, so my best shot at this point was to recover slightly before the next group gets into contact with me, and for that I have to say that the 0% trainer difficulty was pretty good. The funny thing is, I didn't even lose that many positions in this race, but it is quite clear that I will lose ranking here. My plan at this point in the race was to join the group that was slightly behind me so I could work with them and draft, and then beat them on the Titans Grove KOM. But the thing was that if the first two climbs were problematic with the 0% trainer difficulty, the Titans Grove is actually like a final boss to that. The first half of that area is basically just rolling terrain, and if you don't have that gradient feel underneath you, it's really painful to ride there, and not in a physical way, in a mental way. It's actually frustrating. I don't know if it's going to be visible on the footage, but I really struggled to do the correct effort over there. At one point I was getting dropped by the group, so I increased the effort, but I increased it too much, so I got in front of that group, and it was really back and forth kind of thing, and it wasn't fun, and I hated it. In one of my latest community posts, I actually asked you if you tried racing with 0% trainer difficulty, and usually I'm a big fan of trying the thing yourself, but in this case I would just recommend you not doing that. It's not worth your time, not worth your effort, and it doesn't bring you any meaningful benefits to racing. I would say the sweet spot for racing is somewhere between 30 and 50% trainer difficulty. You still get that road feedback, you still get that ability to react to changes in efforts, but you don't need to worry about shifting too much, and that's a sweet spot for me. 600 meters to go, and I want to actually attack here. I don't want this to get to sprint finish, because in an uphill sprint finish pretty much anything can happen. So at this point I'm basically trying to figure out the best spot to do that, and 400 meters seems like an optimal distance. So I put down the power, I steered inward so the group behind me cannot draft, and it was very clear that no one was reacting. Very quickly I got to 2 seconds of advantage over the next rider, and that meant that I finished this race strong. That doesn't mean I finished it well, but I finished it at least strong. Thank you very much guys for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.